In the Christian tradition I grew up in, there were many reasons not to question your faith. You could lose your salvation and end up sent to hell. We were all warned about the slippery slope that led there. You could lose your relationship with the God that you loved, and you could maybe subconsciously lose your own identity. Now, I can't take away all of these fears, but in this video I want to give you 3 things that helped me to at least question more honestly. This is Reluctant Sermonizing. I'm Nathaniel. Let's get started. Alright, number 1. I'd suggest you put some thought into what's at the core of your belief. What's in the layer just outside of that? What's in the layer outside of that? There's a tendency in modern Christianity to think of beliefs as being like a machine. This belief fires this other belief, which pushes that belief, which turns this, etc., etc. It's a belief engine. But if something goes wrong, if one belief ends up not being correct, then the whole thing doesn't work. Now, the professor that showed me this used a different metaphor. He talked about it as a house of cards. Not that house of cards. You know the idea. You pull one card and the whole thing comes tumbling down. Arranging your beliefs with a core creates a better foundation. And it also has a strong church tradition. If you've ever heard the terms dogma, doctrine, and opinions, then you've heard the fancy words for having a core, having a layer outside the core, and having a layer outside of that. You don't have to actually write any of this down or have your own personalized doctrines and dogmas. It just can be helpful sometimes to know where your questions fall within your own personal spectrum. Number 2, what you put in your core beliefs is up to you. But here are 3 things that I put in my core that I found indispensable. 1, God is true. If God isn't true, then it's not the God I'm looking for. So pursuing God is pursuing truth, and pursuing truth is pursuing God. I can go wrong in either direction, but the two cannot be separated. B, God is love. 1 John says exactly this. Now, what is love might be a little bit more challenging, but we all kind of have a general idea. So maybe some of those questions may not have to be right in the core, but I leave that up to you. 3, or C, or the little asterisk symbol. If I am honestly seeking the truth, if I am honestly seeking to love God and my neighbor in truth as instructed, God must be gracious enough to accept me even if I make a mistake. If I am honestly seeking and God rejects me for it, then that God either isn't true or that God can't be love, or both. And in any of those cases, that's not the God that I'm looking for. My 3rd and final suggestion is to choose faith over belief. Here's what I mean. Faith and belief are often thought of as the same thing, but we're going to separate them. Belief in this context is what we think is there based on what we observe. We don't have a whole lot of choice in it, and when we try to force our beliefs, we can end up like Don Quixote, the knight who jousted windmills believing that they were giants. He always had to do these mental gymnastics to force the world to make sense within his beliefs. So when his squire pointed out that the windmills were in fact windmills, he came up with a story that they'd been turned into windmills by a wizard who was his enemy. That's forcing belief. Faith, on the other hand, is much more of a choice. It has to do with being faithful. In the book of Matthew, Jesus talks about people who say, Lord, Lord, presumably people who believe, not getting into the kingdom. But the people who are faithful, who are doing the will of the Father, who are treating others as they would want to be treated, they are getting in. I'm not trying to argue about like some sort of salvation through works sort of thing. What I'm trying to parse here is that you can have all the right beliefs, but still not have faith, not be faithful. Now, one could believe that they have the right answers, but they don't question and they don't seek the truth. And in not seeking the truth, they can abandon faith in the truth and possibly harm their neighbors. Now, someone else, maybe they do seek the truth, they do question, but they come up with the wrong answers. That person, though, has been faithful. They do have faith. Your beliefs might change, but then again, maybe they won't. Maybe you have the best understanding of God and the universe that you're going to get. But that's not the point. The point is to be faithful, to humbly ask the questions, and to follow the truth wherever you end up finding it. So, here's how these things have helped me. If you're scared your beliefs will change and you'll be cast into hell, You can trust in a God that sees your faithfulness and will honor that faithfulness, whatever you end up believing. If you're scared of losing the God that you love, you don't have to stifle that relationship by insisting on your old beliefs. You can ask questions, go deeper, and God or Jesus or the Spirit or the divine or love or the universe or whatever pet name you end up with, or no name at all, the relationship will be deeper, truer, and more satisfying. I've seen it. And if you're scared of losing your identity, I understand. That's probably been the hardest part of my life so far. I could say you can try and center your identity in faithfulness, and that's probably fairly healthy, but some days that will be cold comfort. This can be hard, scary, and lonely. I hope not. I hope your journey of questioning is easier than mine has been. But even if it isn't, trust me. Be faithful. It's worth it.